Generally speaking, I like the bracket system. It's significantly better than the arbitrary 1 to 10 scale of yesteryear. And it is great that if I say my deck is bracket 3 to the letter of the law, you know right off the bat multiple things about my deck. But there are two brackets that I have some issues with. Bracket 1, simply because I don't get it, and bracket 4, because not enough people play it. But I think a lot of players would be happier if they were in bracket 4, and it would be healthier for EDH overall. That's what this video is about. But first, I want to talk to you about Dragon Shield. Dragon Shield are the sleeves that I use for all my decks to protect them. I'm a big fan of the new Dragon Shields with the silver outline. They're so sweet and the shuffle feel is phenomenal. I would highly recommend getting some. And if you click the link below to go to Dragon Shield's website and use my code TTM at checkout, you'll get a discount, plus it supports the channel. Thanks to Dragon Shield for sponsoring the video. So what is bracket 4? This might seem like a simple question, but I do feel there is a bit of confusion. Some players appear to think that bracket 4 is fringe CEDH, but that is not quite true. Bracket 5 or CEDH are decks built with the metagame in mind, meaning when you build a bracket 5 deck, you are building while thinking about other known decks. So you will ask yourself questions like, how can my deck outvalue Blue Farm? How can I interact with Magda Clock combo? And what do I do against any turbo deck? If none of those questions mean anything to you because you are not in tune with what the CDH metagame is like, then you are not building a bracket 5 deck. Bracket 4 looks very different. It is the strongest, most powerful version of a casual deck. A bracket 4 list can still be a casual aristocrats strategy. You're just playing some of the more efficient combos, sack outlets, card draw, so on and so forth. Your bracket 4 control deck might include more stacks elements that you wouldn't play in bracket 3. Common casual themes like Reanimator are still present in bracket 4. Your reanimation threats are just more powerful, or your support pieces make your list more consistent. And high power themes like discard or land destruction are available at bracket 4. If you want to know why I don't like discard at lower brackets, watch this video here. Honestly, bracket 4 is how I used to play EDH. Back in college, my old playgroup would just proxy everything, and we would brew up new wild and wacky decks every day. Everything was on the table: aggro, combo, control, stacks, anything you can imagine. Because we proxied everything, there was never any reason to not have the best interaction and ramp in every single deck. Meaning we always had the best support cards in the game to pair with whatever jank theme we wanted. This is where I really fell in love with Commander. The format's freedom and brewing was on full display. Because of the deep card pool and access to powerful support cards, my friends and I could make any deck work. 5-color Spell Shapers, Rune Voltron, Wild Research Toolbox, and much, much more. If your deck's theme was jank, all you would have to do is increase the amount of interaction to slow the game down to the point where your goofy theme could work. If your theme was faster or more powerful, you played more protection to try and get to your win cons sooner. Every game was a ton of fun. There was an immense amount of back and forth and interactivity. Everyone's deck felt like it had a chance to shine every so often. Win rates felt pretty even, and there were lots of different types of decks that were viable. This is how I interpret bracket 4, taking your casual theme and pushing it to the max. Then, with that in mind, since you know other players are playing powerful themes, you're going to play high power support cards to bolster your theme and make sure you can interact on earlier turns. Like the bracket article shows, turn 4 is when you really need to be ready for something big to happen. That's what I love about bracket 4. The openness, the interactivity, the way you can basically do anything. There's no restrictions. You can just go wild. Ultimately, bracket 4 is the place where the most amount of cards are legal, socially acceptable, and viable out of, I think, any other constructed format. It offers the most freedom, which is awesome. And since everyone is more or less on the same page, there's a lot less salt in bracket 4 games. In brackets 2 or 3, people might argue about what really should be in that bracket or not. But generally, this doesn't happen in 4 because anything goes. I know brackets are meant to be a way to help Rule Zero conversations and not completely replace it. But in the case of high power EDH like this, Bracket 4 can mostly replace Rule Zero. It's just we're playing Commander, not CEDH. That's it. I genuinely feel more players would enjoy themselves if they gave Bracket 4 a try. There is a specific type of player who wants to play the stronger decks, stronger strategies, who is willing to play combos or tune and upgrade their list over and over again. But this type of player does eventually run into the issue of when does your deck upgrade into being Bracket 4? And the answer is not the number of game changers. Although that would make things more simple, sadly game changers do not always equate directly to power. This leads me to why I think Bracket 4 does not see much play. Over all the Commander games I've played since Brackets came out, Bracket 4 has been one of the least common and hardest to find games for. Beyond Bracket 1, I've never been in a Bracket 1 pod. At most random game stores, I am not able to find a Bracket 4 game. It's just not common. Although, when I go to larger events like a MagicCon, hey, I'll be at MagicCon Vegas if you're going to be there, then it's not too difficult to find a Bracket 4 pod, but still much less common. I feel like Bracket 4 inherently should be more popular. Players generally gravitate towards powerful strategies, decks, cards pretty often. If you look at some of the most popular commanders, those are also some of the more powerful Bracket 4 style commanders. And anecdotally, I have run into many players with highly tuned decks that I would probably say should not have been Bracket 3. And that specific issue of people bringing tuned powerful decks that just have 3 game changers, so they say it's Bracket 3, is a common complaint that I see in comment sections or online when people talk about brackets. So then, why don't these players just play Bracket 4? If they're already playing really highly tuned, powerful, technically Bracket 3 decks, wouldn't it make more sense to just add a couple extra game changers and say, hey, it's Bracket 4? One reason is I think people are afraid of stacks. I know that Bracket 4 is the only place where these are really playable because they're all bad in CDH, but that's just one archetype and it's not super common, so I don't know, maybe that's not that big of a reason. I do think some people are like, oh, I would never want land destruction, so I'm gonna make sure I say Bracket 3. Another reason I think players struggle with Bracket 4 is they find the play patterns not very fun. And I think there is a very specific reason for it. You see, it's pretty easy to just add a combo to your deck, maybe a few tutors, stuff like that to really speed up your list. But it's a lot harder to add the required interaction to go along with that. Almost all Bracket 4 decks I see, which I do see a bunch of them because I do deck review streams on my Patreon, link below, those Bracket 4 lists are often lacking some amount of interaction. In lower brackets, you can get away with 3 or 4 mana interaction pieces because games are slower. You have plenty of time to find your 3 or 4 mana counterspell and hold that up. In Bracket 4, though, your interaction beyond board wipes should be 2, 1, or 0 mana. This way, you can more easily play stuff in the early turns and hold up interaction on turns 4 and 5 without losing too much tempo. But because people don't play all the necessary cheap interaction to keep up with the higher power level, a lot of Bracket 4 games end up feeling like 4 players trying to combo as fast as they can with no interaction. So the gameplay is just not that fun. It's still casual Commander, which means players don't play enough interaction. It's been a while since I made a video about playing more removal, but I think that's the thing holding Bracket 4 back. When you don't play enough removal in lower brackets, the effect isn't felt immediately, or it's not felt too much overall. You might lose a game in Bracket 2 because you didn't pack enchantment removal, but that enchantment is probably going to take a few turns before they get enough value to actually spiral that into a win. Yes, you did lose the game as soon as that spell resolved, it just took a few turns. At higher power levels, not having enchantment removal means you lose real fast. All my Bracket 4 games were faster than any CEDH game I had played, since combos went uninteracted with. And in CEDH, everyone's playing so much interaction, an early win is actually fairly uncommon. Casual Commander players will also sometimes have this bias against trying to win. And I don't mean just playing normally, and I'm not talking about Bracket 1 gamers here, I mean just playing stronger cards. It is not uncommon for a player to say budget cards or less played cards are more fun or morally better, or you're a superior deck builder for using those. On some level, I do agree with these statements. It is partially less interesting to add a Fierce Guardianship to your list because, yeah, of course you do. It's a good card. And finding a niche underrated card can be lots of fun to use. I'm not trying to disparage against lower power levels or other brackets here, or even budget gamers overall. I think all that stuff is super great and fun. I also play a lot of bracket 3 and 2 because I love bracket 3 and 2. But I do think that this sentiment that it is superior to just playing stronger cards is wrong. I do think that there is merit in playing the powerful support pieces to support a jank theme at a higher power level. That's perfectly fine. Again, it's casual Commander. We're here to have fun and play games. But I do think that this idea that permeates through the EDH community does somewhat hinder players from trying out Bracket 4. Now, another problem is price. Look, on this channel, I'm sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. They sell cards. I appreciate it when you use my code TTM at checkout. It supports the channel. Thank you. But all of these cards are really expensive, especially the ubiquitous support pieces. A powerful but niche card can be very cheap because it only goes in so many decks. But something like Removal or Ramp, which goes in functionally every deck that wants it, has much higher demand. Because of that, those are the expensive pieces for your Bracket 4 deck, not whatever goofy theme you were doing. Wizards doesn't do reprint sets anymore, and because more cards are printed than ever, then those new powerful staples suddenly need reprints, but there's more cards, so the amount of reprints we get is proportionally smaller to the amount of cards that need reprinting every year. Also, the Universes Beyond pseudo reserve list isn't helping with the prices either. Look, all this to say is Magic will be getting a lot more expensive over the coming years, which is why I have always been very proxy friendly on this channel. I really think it is ridiculous to pay an exorbitant amount for a card that simply just needs a couple of printings to absolutely tank in price. I also understand that the simple solution of proxying is something that not everyone does. Either they don't like it, or their playgroup isn't friendly towards that, or their game store doesn't want them to play proxies, blah, blah, blah. There's lots of reasons to use the real card. But I do think that this monetary discrepancy is a problem for Bracket 4, because when people are winning the game on turn 4-ish, you really need that cheap, efficient interaction in your deck, and a lot of it, to stop them from winning. And there aren't too many great budget alternatives for these cards. So all these issues compound. The high cost of good interaction keeps it from players' hands. So Bracket 4 doesn't see play with the right amount of interaction to keep up with that speed, making the experience of Bracket 4 generally worse. Ultimately, a game with no removal just means whoever finds their win con first wins the game, which is not particularly interesting if it's just a game of chance. And this is heavily exacerbated in higher power games. The illusion of gameplay that comes from lower brackets when you don't play interaction is simply not present in Bracket 4. So I want to talk about how we can fix this to have a fun time in Bracket 4. My main advice is if you want to upgrade your list to a Bracket 4 deck, don't just add game changers and better win cons. I know the bracket thing here says stuff about 2-card combos and game changers, but that isn't necessary or even directly related to power level. Adding Oracle Consultation to a precon does not make your precon Bracket 4, and 99% of the time does not change the overall power of the deck. Your deck does not need to have fast combos or mass land destruction to function in Bracket 4. It just needs to be ready for a turn 4 format, meaning the fastest decks at the table might try to win by then. So just simply account for that and play a lot of low mana value interaction. That is the most important thing in any Bracket 4 deck. And remember, I'm talking about interaction. This isn't just removal. Yeah, counterspells are great and all, but if you look at my current Bracket 4 list, the amount of removal I have is fairly low. But I have a lot of hate bears that slow my opponents down and can buy me multiple turns to then play a second or third stacks piece that actually slows them down and lets me push for my win. Additionally, in Bracket 4, this is where you can play the actually scary cards designed for EDH without many issues. One of the biggest complaints I see from VV players is that their commander gets obliterated because it's probably the scariest thing at the table. This happens when there are power mismatches. Being the strong deck at the table doesn't always mean an easy win. It can mean that you're the arch enemy and you don't get to use your commander because everyone's going to blow it up. But this is less common in bracket 4. I assume in bracket 4 that everyone is doing something scary. If I see some random weird commander, I assume they're the threat in bracket 4. Whereas at a lower bracket, if I see a weird jank commander, they're probably not doing anything that scary. Threat assessment in higher brackets is more even and closely tied to game state, allowing your more powerful individual cards to actually stick around because they are, relatively speaking, less threatening to what other people are doing. I love high power EDH. I think it's really, really fun. And every bracket 4 game I've played has been super chill. There's no salt, no confusion about Rule 0, good vibes all over. My only issue is people are not packing enough interaction in those games. And they could be a little bit more satisfying if we had more of a back and forth. If you are a player that has had issues with getting focused down in Commander games, or feel that casual EDH is too slow for you, Bracket 4 might be right for you, so give it a try and maybe proxy a couple of those expensive interactive pieces. Veg TV asks, if I had a pickle in front of me right now, would I cut it vertically or horizontally? Probably horizontally. I like pickle chips. I think it's fun to like spread those out on a sandwich as opposed to the long strips. Most sandwiches are not the right shape for that. So yeah, big pickled chip kind of guy. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this interesting or thought-provoking. Maybe you're going to try out a bracket 4 deck after this. Could be fun. Special thanks to my tier 3 patrons whose names you see here, and all my patrons who ask questions like Veg TV did. If you want to join the Patreon and get your name in the credits here or ask questions, click the link below.